Hello guys, welcome. It's Steven here today, and we are continuing from our initial project, the meditation app we started to build to demonstrate navigation in Jetpack Compose. And today we decided to take it a little bit further by adding a layer of security to this app that we're building. Initially, the app, once the splash screen comes on, it leads the user to the main screen. But now, because we're trying to maintain clean architecture and also scalability and security for our systems or our product, the app we're building, we'll now need to add a layer of security to take the user from the splash screen to where they are going to log in if they have already created an account, or create an account so that they will be able to access the main content of the app. I'm happy and excited to go on this with you, and I hope you are so too. So if you have not seen the other video on how we started this project, I will put the link on the description below, or you can find it anywhere on the screen so that you can follow along if you want to code along and learn about navigation in Jetpack Compose. So today we're going to be touching a lot of things. I will urge you to sit back, relax, and code along and learn something new today. So, are you excited? Let's get started, okay? So first of all, we have already created this splash screen here, which is like the links to our app. But we're going to do something better because we want to maintain clean architecture and separate concerns. So, and because our screens are going to be managed with Compose, we're going to set a companion object to help in this when we're routing our screens. So it's not a good practice to share data in the composables, in our composables, which is going to be our screens. So it is a good practice to have a single source of truth, like your data layer, where you set up all your data elements, so that from there, once your composable has been recompiled or recomposed, then you won't have your data lost. So you use unique IDs to identify this source of data, so that once your screen have successfully loaded, you can now call up your data on the composable. So now we're going to set up the companion object. First of all, in our enum class, we've not added the login screen, so let's quickly add that. So call this login screen. So, and again, we'll have to add a create account screen. So now that we've created all this create account screen and the login screen, here under here we're going to add our companion object. We're going to set our route to that, and it's going to be fun from route, and we're going to set route as the parameter and assign that will be a nullable string, and we're going to call the meditation screen, then assign that to using the when to determine which screen is passed at which time. So that's going to be our route, which is still nullable, and we'll set it to substring before. So substring before with delimiter, yeah. So that's going to be our route. I think there's a space around here. We'll add our delimiter. With that, we can add a lambda here that we're going to be setting the screens to. So first of all, we'll have the splash screen dot name. We'll set that to the splash screen, right? So see, simply we have created all the objects of our composables. Then finally, if it is null, if you can't find any screen or any composable, then it should send the user back to the main screen, which will be like our home page, right? So then else you should throw exception, like throw illegal argument exception like this. Then we'll call set a string to tell us what the problem is. So, and we'll just call route, then assign it to route is not, whatever route you're searching for is not recognized here. Okay, recognize, did I make mistake? Yeah. Okay, so that's all for the companion object and meditation screens. So actually we're done with this now. So what we need to do to set this up properly now is to go to our meditation navigation and set up all these screens, all this composable. Did I close that? Did I close? I think I closed that. Okay, so all we need to do now is to set up these screens and make sure they are, you can find the right composables for them, which we're going to use later on in this project. Okay, so right here we've created for the main screen and the splash screen. So we'll just copy this, Command B. So the next screen should be, if I'm correct, about screen. Yeah, so we have not created that yet, which I'm going to do in a minute. So right here, the next one is the settings. Okay, the next one here should be login. Okay, so I think we need one more. Then this should be the create account screen. Okay, so that's it now, but there is one more thing. So before I go to find it, to avoid unnecessary errors, I'm going to create some new composable files for the ones that we don't have already. And the next one should be about, right? So, and it's going to be a file. So let's just quickly create that to avoid any complications along the way. And here is going to be fun about us, about screen. And don't forget to call the nav controller for us to find the screen when we need it. So let's just add a simple test so that whenever we navigate to any of this screen, we'll know where we are. So this is, let's just type about us. So okay, so that should be it for this particular one, and we'll close that down. Then the next one is let's create another composable file, which is going to be the settings, I guess. All right, let me copy that, and that is it. So here, another composable, and it's going to be fun, then nav controller, then our test, and it's going to be let's set up. I think that's a good one, right? So this is it now. This is done. Then the next one should be our login screen, which we'll be using very soon. So here, login screen, and let's go. So what I'll just do, instead of repeating and boring you with all this, is to copy this, paste it here, change this to login. Simple. So the last one is going to be our create account screen. Yeah, okay. So it's going to be a file, then we'll paste it again, then just change this, create account. Yeah, I missed in there. Right, so I need to change the text, sorry. For these two, I won't change the text because we're going to be working on them immediately, so there's no point changing the text to anything. So this gone, I take this off. So now we just track those files that we've already created here. So here we'll look for about, yeah, about screen. So this is the right one, I missed that. Okay, so then this is going to be, no, I'm not looking for you there yet, so come on. Here, this is going to be settings screen. Yeah, so then this is going to be login screen, capital L, login screen. Okay, then the last one is create account screen. Okay, so that is our nav controller. The nav graph is already set up here. So here we have set all the screens. So as you can see, this app has about 6 screens. So now we are done with this guy at this point. So we'll just close that down to keep our screen clean. Are we doing anything on the main activity? No, so we'll close that down as well. All right, so right now we'll finish with our companion object, and we'll have set up our navigation graph and our composable to track them when we need them. So our app is genuinely set up the proper way. We'll have high possibility of not losing any data because we're going to separate concerns. Then to do that again, let's go to this screens package because it seems like it's been a bit cloudy. Let's clean it up a bit, because by the time we start scaling up our app and building different things on our interfaces and requiring data through different means, remember our single source of truth. So each of these screens are going to have their own view model, which we are going to use to pass the data along. So let us create packages to put each of the screen in, so that when we start creating the view model, all of them can be the same place, so that even though our app is a monolith app, is just a single model, by the time in case in the future we'll start expanding and building apps that are more complex, we can now separate them to different modules. So let's do that quickly and move on. So we'll create a package. First is about, then the next one is create account, the next one is login, and the next one again is settings. Yeah, oh, I think I need to refactor that. I have made some typo there, and it is 1N. Yeah, so that's better. Refactor that. All right, so the next one, I'll call it home, because that's where our main screen is going to be housed. So I will move these meditation screens to our navigation package. Okay, to about, right, then move these to create and move these to login. Okay, and move these to settings. Okay, so then these two, no, cancel that. move this to home. Okay, so right here you can see we'll have a cleaner architecture here in our package, our app package, and the way we'll set up things. So that's out of the way. Let's move on. Right, so the next thing we're going to do now is to we'll start creating our app widgets. These app widgets are going to be our component, which is going to be like our text fields, buttons, and everything that we're going to be reusing in this app to maintain consistency of our design interface or our UI. So I would like to put those in a component package, which I'm going to create right away. Someone's baby is crying. Not my baby. Okay, so in this component we're going to create a file that is going to be app widgets, because these are where all our widgets are going to be. So we're going to be creating them one by one. And so the first widget we're going to create here, I want to make something like a logo, just a type kind of logo that we're going to use for this app. It's not fancy, but it works for the demonstration. Okay, so you can go overboard and do whatever you want and make it look nice and clean and more professional, but this is just for the demonstration purposes. So these are reusable design elements. Right, so down here I'm going to create a composable, and that composable I will call it what's the name of our app again? Meditation app logo. Okay, that's a good name. Meditation app logo. Okay, so that's fine. So here we are going to have some parameters, like let's call a modifier, and our modifier we're going to assign it to a modifier so that we're going to use it through. Then inside here we're going to have first of all an image of creating our logo. So it's going to be painter resource, I guess. Okay, painter resource, then r.drawable. I think we'll have in the drawable folder we already have this meditation png, so that's what we're going to use to create our logo shortly. So let's import r first to find that. The r takes some time to find the resource, the dependencies. I've not seen it yet. Okay, so now what's the name? Meditation. Yeah, like that. So I'll put this in a new line, then we'll call this meditation logo, meditation icon. Yeah, so now after that, let's add some size to that and make it tiny, because the initial size is 512 by 512, so it's not going to fit in. It's going to take all the space in our app and our screen because this is a mobile app. So here I'm going to call modifier.size, and I'm going to set the size to 90.dp. I need to import dp. Yeah, so now I've set the size and I want it to fit to the content scale, so I'm going to call content scale. So it's content scale dot fit here. So with that, we're going to have a small size of that icon as part of our logo. Then the next thing, let's add a simple text under it that's going to be nice and clean. And I remember initially we used in our splash screen, I think just something like we have in our splash screen, something similar to that. That's what we're looking to create here. So like a blue logo, a blue text here, that's what we're going to add under it. So now let me close this up. Then we'll now have we already have our test. So what's the test gonna be? Should we use the same test that we used initially in the splash screen? I think we should use deep meditation as well. So if we use deep meditation, to remind the user what the app is about. So deep meditation is our test. Let's add some styling to that so that it will look nice. So our style material theme dot the typography, I want it to be like title typography dot title medium again. Then I need to add a color to it. This is going to be blue color, but maybe we'll make it kind of a little bit faint here. Dot blue. So to reduce the opacity, we use dot copy. So now we're going to set it to like, let me set it like 0.7 f for the alpha. So right now this is our meditation app logo and it's already set here. So for us to see a glimpse of what we're doing here, we can use preview. Let's see if that's going to come up in the preview. And let's check if it's rendering. So okay, it's not looking as good as I want it to. It's kind of modeled up. The text is above the logo. I want the text to be under the logo. So to achieve that, simply here we could do that. We could achieve that using in the login where we'll call this up. So we can easily achieve that using a column here to set that up. Let's see. So if I use a column, so set the column, I set vertical arrangement, I set it to the center. Then the horizontal alignment, I set it to center horizontally. Yeah. So if we do that and copy this text, I guess it will look better. So let's see. You see, now everything looks like it should. Here the text is beneath and the icon is above. So with that, we've solved that problem. So as you can see, we're making progress. So now this is one bit of the widget. So anywhere in this app that we want to use that logo, this representation, we can easily call it up. That is why separating concerns or app components like this is very important and good. So we can use it across our app on any page we wish to. But if we had coded it in one composable, that means it will be hard to use that. So this is a very good practice you can take along while you're learning and practicing. So now that is out of the way, let's create another widget. So now this widget is going to be our test fields that we're going to use to collect the user's email and password to let them to log into this app. So let's create that quickly. And it's going to be, let's call this I'll call this, we want to collect username input during account creation. So let me call this username input, right? Then we're going to set the parameters of this input, and the username is going to be mutable state. That's username. So it's going to be mutable state. So, and it's going to take an element of a string, because our username are usually strings. So under that we'll have a label, because we want a label for this user. That's a label ID, which is going to be, because these are reusable input fields, so we can change them to anything. So right here we want to set this to label ID if you want to, and that is where you put whatever name or wherever you want to use it. You now assign a string. So for this is going to be username. Yeah, so this label we're going to also use as placeholders for the input string to tell the user what is required from them. So enabled, we're going to use this enabled to determine, to withhold certain actions, like we don't want the button to be active immediately the login page comes on until the user enters their username, the email address and the password. Once all this is completed, then once the user gets to the password stage, then the button becomes active for them to submit. So this is why we're using enable here, and this enable we're going to set it's going to be a boolean. So, and I will set it to true right away. So, and after that the next parameter is IME action. So IME actions, now we're going to set it to IME action to next. So meaning that we want this is what we want the keyboard to do. So when you set IME action to next, you are telling it to focus on the next input field that is below the one that you're currently on, which is the username input. So with this IME action set to next, we can now use the focus request to actually target it to the next input field. I hope that will make sense in a minute. Just hang on with me. So on action, once the user what do we want to happen once the user has completed and click maybe next or this checker box on the keyboard. So we want the keyboard action to be default. So whatever, since we're using IME action to the next, it means that there are, I'm not supposed to put this. So since we're using IME action, so it means that there are other input fields below this particular one. So now what is the default action? We'll set the keyboard action to default so that the person can click next and move to the next one, right? So this is why we need all these parameters. So keyboard actions dot default. Okay, so that is all the parameters that we'll be needing for this particular input field. And let me close this up, okay, so that we can have a better view of our screen and this. Okay, so now we're going to use outline text field for this particular input field. Outline text field, yeah. So now what's going to be the value? So the value for this one is going to be our username state. So this is going to be username dot value. So this is going to be our username dot value, because the state is mutable, so it can change. So because another user can enter a different thing. So then on value change, what do we want to happen? So on value change, we want it to take the text label, whatever the label ID, which is going to be a text that the user enters. So we'll use a lambda, and here put a text and assign that to label ID. So that's gone. Then the next on value change, we want to call the username value and set it to I. So on value change, we want the username state. I called it here username. So here is supposed to be username state. Okay, so now, and this is supposed to be username state. So now here we'll have username state dot value is assigned to IT. So whatever the username is, we want to call it up here. Then the next is the label. So our label will always take us to the text, which is going to be assigned to the label ID. Okay, let's put this here and also enclose this. Right, so the next one is we want the input, whatever input the user is putting here, to be a single line. So I want to set that to true. The next one is the text. What's going to be our text style? Let's add some customization to this text. That is going to be our label ID. So our text style, we want the font size to be 18.sp, a little bit large. We need to import sp. Yeah. So, and we need to set the color for the title. We need to set it. Let's make it on background. Whatever the background color is, it should be the alternate color of the background. So we use material theme to achieve that. Dot color scheme dot on background. So because we want this to be visible and good in every screen. If you're in dark mode, if you're in bright mode, then the text can alternate, the color of the text can alternate at the same time. So then modifier, we're going to use modifier to add some padding. So here we're going to add some bottom padding and make that 10.dp, and also want some start padding, one padding from the start .dp. So, and again at the end of the text field, we want some more padding, and we'll assign that all that to 10.dp. Then after that, we want to make our text field to fill max width. Yeah, so that's the modifications that we want for this button. So enabled, we're going to set our enable this time to enabled. which we have set to be true before. So then our keyboard action, our keyboard options, we want it to assign it to keyboard options. So keyboard options. So inside this keyboard options, we're going to set our keyboard type and set it to our keyboard type to be username, to be text. So our keyboard type, we'll set it to text because it's just username, so we won't allow people to use numbers as their username because that will be very confusing. So we'll set IME action to IME action. Then after that, I need to close this up here and add the last bit. So our keyboard actions, we'll set this to on action. So initially on action, we'll set it to default. So whatever the keyboard default is, we're okay with that. So this is our line test field. Let's go to our login screen, and here we're going to do add some setup so that this login screen can appear the way we want it to appear. So down here, I'm going to add a surface that we're going to use to layer out the components or the elements in our login screen. So first of all, we'll add a surface, and in that surface, I'm going to add a modifier to fill max size so that this will be the entire screen of our app, guys. No, chose the wrong one. Okay. Dot fill max size. All right. So this is going to cover the entire screen of our app. So down here, because we're going to be setting this in stack, in columns, so we're going to use a column down here to also layer the widgets that we're creating down here. So first of all, I'm going to add a modifier because I need to add some top padding to this column. So the modifier dot padding. So here I'm going to add a top padding, and I'm going to give it like 15.dp on top. Let's import dp again here. So we've imported dp here. Then let's add some bottom padding as well to give it a very nice look and feel. So right here, our column. Then after that, let's set, I want all the elements to appear in the middle of the screen. So let's set our vertical and horizontal settings again. So vertical arrangement, to set arrangement to center, and horizontal alignment, we'll set alignment to center horizontally, right? So now with that, everything that we are putting in this screen is going to be aligned properly in the center. So let's first of all call our first widget, which is our meditation app logo here. Where am I? Okay, here. So we'll call the meditation app logo, this one down here. I'm going to create a kind of user form that we're going to use to call this element. So down here, let's create another composable quickly that we're going to, because this is going to be like, I want to put the username input, the email input, the same place, and the login and the password and the button together. So here we're going to create another composable which we will use to make that happen. So here is going to be function. Let's call it login user form. So login user form, not from form. So here in this login, you have to add some of the parameters like loading. So we're going to set the loading to false. So we want this loading to come on once the user clicks on the submit button. So this loading here is going to be a boolean, and that boolean is going to be set to false. So now another parameter that we'll be needing here is the undone. So you'll see how this comes together in a minute. So we'll set that to a string, and it's going to be string because because in our login page or login composable, the user is going to be logging in with the email and password. So we're going to set it to 2 strings and set that to unit. Yeah. So, and this unit is going to be a lambda, and in our lambda we're going to have let me put that down here. So we're going to have email and password pw. Let's just leave it like that. Okay, so now down here we're going to have another lambda where we will now put all the elements that we're going to be using for the user to log in, like the email and password. So down here we're going to set that with a column as well, because we want it to be one on top of the other. So now let's set the modifier for our column. So modifier, and we're going to, in this modifier we're going to, because we're using this login user form, and we're going to, what we want to appear in this login user form is going to be our email address input field, password input field, then also the button. So now let's set the modifier. We want to give it a space that is going to contain these 3 elements. So the modifier, we're going to set that to yeah. So we're going to assign that to modifier dot height. We're going to set the total height for those 3 elements to be like 250.dp. Then I want to set the background to use whatever background the user has, like the background color to be the default background of the app. If the user is in dark mode, it should take dark background. So color scheme dot background, right? So right here we will just call modifier, this modifier that we've just created here, and that will be it. So here let's set our horizontal alignment. We want everything to align to the center horizontally. So that's done now. So let's continue with setting up our app widgets that we're going to be used, so that we'll just call them up once once they are needed and where they are needed. Okay, so I will copy this, not to bore you with this. We're going to duplicate this. We're going to duplicate this and use it for the email because they are quite similar. So let's call this email inputs. Change our name there. Email inputs, right? So here is going to be email, and every other thing is still the same. Every other thing is the same, so nothing else is changing here. So every other thing remains the same, but here the keyboard is going to be .email, not text, so that will make sure that they put a valid email address. So that's done. Then I'm actually going to do a similar thing for our password, but I'm going to, there is going to be a lot of changes for this. This is going to be a bit different because this is our password. So here is going to be, I forgot to change something here, so this is going to be email state. I didn't change that. So email state, then down here, and this is going to be email state. So with that, I think we should be good with all this. All right, so that's all set up for that now. So here is going to be password state, right? So here we're going to have password state, and again on value change is going to be password state. Here we'll do exactly the same thing so that we don't waste a lot of time on recoding all this. So that's done. So the label is still going to be label ID. All these are good the way they are, but up here the label ID is going to, we're not going to initialize that here. Then as well, the enabled, will leave that this way as well. So, and again here we are going to create a password visibility, something that we could use to toggle the input the user have entered for password in case they want to verify if they have entered the right password or something that they could remember. So I'm going to add that here, password visibility. So but before I add that password visibility, sorry, so, and I'm going to set that to mutable state, and is also going to be a boolean, and sorry, a mutable state, and is going to take a boolean. Yeah, so that's our password visibility. Then the IME action now is going to be set to done, because this is where we want to enable our keyboard, and this is also going to be set as default. So right down here we're going to set the right parameters. So this is correct, this is okay, and this is also okay. Single line true. Then our text, we should use the same styling for our text as well. Then the same with our modifier. Then enabled is still enabled. So our keyboard option is going to be keyboard type, and this is going to be password as well. So that will make sure dot password. Okay, so that is about it. So the IME action is the IME action. So then after that, before here, we're going to add a visual transformation, which we're going to assign with a trailing icon, that we're going to use to we're going to use a trailing icon here. So first of all, we need to initialize this visual transformation to visual transformation. So but first of all, we have to create the visual transformation. Let's put that up here, and we'll create a var which we'll call visual transformation. So we'll set that to, we'll use an if statement. So we're going to say use an if statement to check whether if password visibility dot value is true, then we'll set our visual transformation to none. So that means it should remain hidden at that point. So if it's true, then the password, whatever the user have entered, the text should remain hidden. So this visual transformation is used to change the state of a test. So then, or else, if not, then we should call password visual transformation here. As we have set the visual transformation now, so that we can unmask the text that the user have used. So down here, we're going to assign that to our visual transformation, right? So after that, we're going to use, I think it's getting too long. Let's put this in a new line. Then again, let's add a trailing icon here. Yeah, so we're going to use this trailing icon to show the toggle on and off. Okay, so down here we'll call password visibility. Then here we're going to pass our password visibility equal to password visibility. So we'll have to create this composable password visibility. So let's create that down here, and with that, we have completed our password setting right here. So let's create this widget, password visibility, and set the condition. Then here we're going to add an icon for the user to toggle the text to either mask or mask the text that they have typed. So here we're going to use var, and we'll call this visibility, or we'll call it visible, equal to password visibility dot value. So here we're going to use this to call the value of the password visibility. Then under here, let's add an icon button that we use to toggle the visibility on and off. So now on the on click, we want to reverse whatever the password is. So if initially the password is masked, so then on click, let the password visibility dot value be equal to the inverse of the visibility that is already set. So once you click on the button, let it reverse the state of the password of the text the user have already put in as the password. So then here we're going to use an icon. So on this icon, we're going to use a bitmap, the icon with bitmap. So here we're going to use an if statement. So I will say if password visibility dot value is true, right? So if it's true, then that means it's in the original state, meaning that it's masked. already, we're going to use icons. So if it's marked already, let's use icons. I will use the field version dot visibility. This visibility is part of the extended icon class of the Google icons. So we need to add another dependency for us to actually use that icon to determine the visibility of our app. So let's quickly get that. So we'll search on Google. Let's search for material icons extended dependency. Okay, let's find that. So once we find that, we'll be able to use that icon to toggle. I think we'll be able to find it here. This is the one I'm looking for here, right here. So this compose bomb, we've already used that before, I guess. So I will copy this one and add it to our project here. So once we add that, we need to clear all this off, so that, because this is for Java, then this is the right one for Kotlin. So now, once we sync our project, we'll be able to use that toggle to show or hide our password text. Okay, and just give that a little time to download the necessary dependencies for that. Okay, right. So now let's see if we can find that visibility icon yet. You see, it's now up. We can see that now. So once the password visibility dot value is true, we want it to be visible, so we'll use the visibility icon right there. So now, then if it's not true, what happens? We still use icons and also the field icons. Think of icons dot field dot visibility of. Okay, so with this we have set our part. We can now use, you see that icon will be able to come up. So then set our content visibility, content description, toggle password visibility. That's the description I'll give this. So toggle password visibility icon. I think this is a long one, but that's still fine. So with that, we have now set this password visibility to be visible once the user clicks on this icon. Okay, so I think that's our password set, our email set, our username input set. So now let's quickly go to our login screen and set up everything nicely, so that at least you can see what we've done so far. Okay, so right here, to complete, we have set the modifier, but we'll still need some variables which we're going to use to save the state of this text, input text that we're going to be adding collecting from the user to help them log in. All right, so first of all, you remember when we talked about this, we talked about the IME action, the keyboard action, to focus on the next input field. Yeah, so this is where we're going to use that. So here we're going to create a variable that we're going to call our focus manager, which is going to hold. So our focus manager will assign that to local focus manager, and we'll set that to current. So once the current is, you click next, it pushes to the next input field. So here we'll need more variables, and we're going to call this one val email to save the state. So we'll assign this to remember savable. Remember savable, and it's not state saver. So this is going to be immutable state of. So here we'll have mutable state of. And we're going to set this to just an empty string. Then we'll still create something similar. We'll create another one. Let me just copy and paste, duplicate that. So this is going to be our password, right? So here our password. Then again, also for our password visibility, we need to set that up so that we can remember the initial state the password visibility is at. Password visibility. So now that's set, but we'll set this initial to the initial value to be false, right? So then again, our keyboard controller, we're going to set keyboard controller. So keyboard controller, we're going to use local software keyboard controller, this one. So, and we'll set that to current. Okay. So then finally, we're going to check if what the user inputs is, if the email and password are valid text. So we are going to create another variable which is valid, and we'll assign that to remember. So remember, we're going to assign this to, first of all, we'll have the remember is going to hold the email value and the password value. So we'll say email.value and password.value. Okay, so with that, we're going to trim all the actions for the for the focus. So we're going to trim the email to make sure that there are no white spaces or extra spaces. So trim and set this dot is not empty, so that they can't continue if they have not entered anything, and move on. So set that condition, and this is password. Do the same thing of value dot trim dot is not empty, right? So with this valid, we can now check if they have entered a valid input, and they are not just clicking the button to move on. Okay, so right here we're going to call our column. So column here, and we'll call our modifier here. So the modifier that we'll set up initially then set our horizontal alignment, and we'll set alignment to center horizontally, right, for those widgets. So now down here we're going to call the email input, which we have already created, and the state is going to be email, right? So now that our email has been assigned, the next variable we will need is to set the enable. Do we want it enabled when just immediately they enter the email? No, we want them to move further down to entering we want them to move to the password and enter whatever the password is. So now this loading here, we're going to set whatever the loading is, we'll set it to, it will inverse that, right? So under here, after that, we're going to set on action. What do we want to happen once they have clicked next? So our keyboard actions, we're going to set that to focus, the focus manager that we created above, and we're going to ask them to move focus. Where do we want this to move this focus to? So when they move the focus to where? So focus direction, so we want to move the focus direction down to the next input field. So that's our email done. So after the email, we're going to call the password input, and pass the parameters. So it was the password state is still password from here. So let's put this in separate lines. Then this, the label ID for the password, you know, we did not set this initially, so this is going to be password, and I want it to be initial capital, then this to be the next line. So when is enabled, we still don't want the loading, yeah. So now down here, the password visibility, we will assign that to this password visibility state that we've created up here. And again, lastly, on action, what do we expect to happen once the user have clicked? So once the user have clicked, we will expect use an if statement to decide what's going to happen. So if is not valid, so if it's not valid, it's true, then we want to return whatever well, I think I used the same, so I called the wrong one. So want to the user to return whatever the keyboard actions are if it's not valid. But if not, then on done, if the user clicks done, then we'll validate the email dot value dot trim. So once we trim that and make sure there are no spaces, then also the password, we'll do the same thing for the password, then dot trim as well. So now once this is done and everything, like the user clicks on the password, the user should be sent immediately to the submit button should be active, right? So now we can see something because we have created our user login form and have passed all the values of our parameters. So we can easily call login form here and check it out briefly to see what we have done so far and see if we are going to see anything on our screen. Let's check that out. So it's still taking us back to our main activity. I hope you understand why that happened. because in our splash screen, I guess this is where our splash screen is. Yeah, so we actually told our app where after the delay to take us to the main screen directly, so we have not assigned it to the login screen. So if we just change that, it's going to take us to where we want to be. So this is the login screen where we want to navigate to once we have after this splash screen uploaded. So let's run the app again and see if that has changed. Yeah, so it has changed. As you can see, it's now working. Now you can see our little logo and it's in the center, which I don't really like. I want it to, okay, I know why. So when we go to, let's close this, we're done with this for now, and this as well. Where is our login screen? Okay, so here in the login screen, so in this column we have set it, the arrangement to be to the center. So let's move this to the top so that it will look nice and clean, unless if we want to, if we are using the top app bar, which we're not using at this point. So if we set this to the top, it's going to push it up, I believe. Right, you see it has pushed that to the top of the screen now. So but I need some breathing space around here. As you can see, it's kind of squashed. So let's make this top padding maybe 30 dp and see how it looks. So it looks a bit better. So if I notch that up about another 15 dp, which makes it 45, and make this like 30 dp to give it some breathing space under as well. No, this doesn't affect it right now. So this, I'll leave this. Then I will go to the app widgets, go to the logo, and where do we have our bottom padding? Do we have any padding below? No. So the text, do we have modifier here so that we can quickly add that? No. So generally, let me add a modifier to this and add some bottom padding. And even if I add a top padding here, it's going to actually give us what we want. But let's start with modifier dot padding. So if I let me just add 10 dp top and also 10 dp bottom. Oh no, 15 dp. I want a better, a bigger gap under so that it can move away from the input field, right? So let's rerun that and see if it has better look. Yeah, you see, it seems like our app looks a bit more professional now. So as you can see, let's test out our keyboard and Miami actions. So here, if I type you@me.com, then if we click, oh, this is blocking my way. How do I move this away? Okay, all right. So if we click this next button now, you see it takes us to the password column. So let's type some gibberish here and see if our password visibility is also working. You see, that works pretty much and very fine. So the next thing we're going to do now is to add our submit button in this widget. Let's quickly add our submit button right here, and down here we're going to create a widget for the submit button. So we'll add a composable, and it's going to be font. So submit button, yeah, right. So what parameters do we need for our submit button? First of all, our submit button will need a text. So text ID, we'll assign that to a string, and also we'll need the loading. How is it going to respond to the loading? So it's going to be a boolean, and as well valid input. So have the user entered a valid input? We need to check that. So that's going to be a boolean as well. If yes, then we continue. So then after that, then on click, when the user clicks the button, what happens? So we'll set that to, so we set the on click to null for now. So we'll assign what we expect to happen later, which is to navigate once the user is validated, to navigate the user to another screen. Yeah, so we'll set that to null for now. Then down here we're going to use a button. So and the on click, we'll assign that to on click. On click, right? Then after that, we'll add a modifier. So we'll add a padding to our button, internal padding to our button, and set that to 3dp. Then again, want it to fill the max width. So we want the button to fill up the space of the row it's occupying. Okay, so now the next one is we have to set the enabled. So now the user have entered everything, and it's still, we'll set our loading to inverse of whatever it was initially, and we'll have to test for valid inputs and check if the user have entered valid input. This should be plural, so this valid inputs. Then after that, we want to make our style our button a bit. So let's add some shape elements. So this is going to be a circle shape, and so to give it a round nice corners for better look and feel. So let's set some if conditions here and say that if loading is true, right, then want to create a circular progress indicator. And the circular progress indicator, let's set the modifier dot size. Want to set the size to 25.dp. Okay, then after that, what happens if it's true? We'll set the indicator to start running, but if it's not true, then we'll set a text, which is the text ID, and which is obviously going to be login. So, and we'll set the padding to that modifier dot padding, and set the padding for this one to be 5.dp. So this is our submit button done. Now let's go back to our login form, user form, and call the submit button so that we can use that there. Under here we'll add the submit button. Submit button is supposed to be uppercase, so we'll call the submit button here, and the text ID is going to be login. So now loading should be active. So our loading should be active now, so we don't need to inverse that anymore because the user once have entered everything. So here our valid input, then we'll call valid as well because we've got everything we needed from the user to get them logged in, okay, into our app. So then on done, we'll have to validate our email again. Dot value collect whatever the user have typed in for us to use to validate them when we check for their details. So set that to trim, and that's it. Then what do we want to happen once the user have finished everything and click on login or create account? We want to hide the keyboard controller so that the keyboard, will set this to nullable to hide, so that our keyboard will disappear and not remain there. Okay, so now we need to take this out, it's causing problem. So our app is almost set for validation. So now let's run it and see what we have done so far. Hope you're excited about what we have been doing so far, and we're making a lot of progress here, guys, and it's interesting. You're learning along, I believe so, and you're able to create a simple login form like this, and we'll take it to Firebase to validate the user's input and make sure they are eligible to log into our app, me.me.com. Then if I click next, it goes to the password. So I type some gibberish. You see our password, our login button is now active, which is what we want. And if we still toggle this on and off, it works. So once we click this, what do we want to happen? This will take us, this will be the next thing. This after we'll have to do something, add a text here to give the user the option to either go, if the user is not registered on the app already, they can use the link there to go to create account, but if they have, they can now use that to bounce back to login. Okay, so that's the next thing we need to do now. So let's add that test quickly. So before we add the test, let's is our emulator. Okay, so before this text, let's add a spacer. So you can see right here we have called the logo first, which is this part. Then we have called our user login user form, which is these three together. Then now let's add a space, a spacer, a horizontal spacer here to give us some space for we to enter the text. So right under here, I'm going to add a spacer, and that spacer, the modifier, I'm going to set the height of the spacer dot height. I'm going to set that to 15.dp, right? So with that, let's use a row to create the text because we're going to be having two texts. So let's use a row, and in this row I want to add some padding to the row. So we'll call modifier.padding. See if that works without initializing it. So it works. So now let's add a top padding. I will make that to be 5.dp, then add the horizontal and vertical properties. So vertical alignment, we're going to set alignment to center vertically, sorry. Then the horizontal arrangement, because this is a row, so it's inverse. If it's column, this will be horizontal alignment, while the other is a vertical arrangement. So that's the way Compose is. So then horizontal arrangement here, we'll set it to center. So now after that, let's now add our text beautifully here. So here our text is going to be a string. So we'll ask the user, this is for the login screen, so it's going to be already have an account. Okay, no, this is going to be new user. The baby is not stopping. Bless her. So we ask the user, new user, says if is a new user, what do you want to do? We want to send them to create account. Create account, yeah. So we'll set them to create an account. So, and this create account, we'll add a clickable so that it can be, the text can be clickable. So right here, we're going to add a modifier. So I'll use that again, dot clickable. So we're going to add a modifier dot clickable. So in this clickable, what do we want to happen when the user clicks it? So we want the user nav controller to be navigate, no, not that navigate, the route one, which is this one. So we want, and then how do we navigate? We'll call our meditation screens. Where are you? Here you are. Dot create account down here. So dot name, don't always forget to put dot name, yeah. So now we want this test once the user, if the user is a new user that have not been in our app before, this is what we want to happen, we want them to do. So right here we're going to add dot padding, add some padding to that, and in the start to space them, let's add a start padding of 5 dp again to create some nice space between them. Then we want to set the font weight, make it a bit bold so that it will be to stand out for them to see it. Then we want to set that to bold. So font weight, we'll set that to bold. Then let's add, make a different color from the original color, whatever color that it was. So then, so let's set this color to material theme dot color scheme dot secondary container. So we want to make it, I want to make it secondary container. You see how that turns out in a moment. Let's rerun our app and see what it looks like. You see, so it's kind of faint, I don't like it. So now you see, let's set up. it goes to the setup. Was that what I choose? Create account. Oh, I copied the text for setup on the create account here. So, but that's not where it's supposed to be. So when I go back, this is kind of faint. Let's take care of that before we move on. In fact, let me use blue. Can I get anything blue? Color scheme, what are the options? Let's use color instead of, yeah, let me make it blue. I think blue will stand out better. And this is faint, I don't like it. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? So you see, it's better. So it's quite obvious for them to see that this button, this is a button and it's clickable as well. So that is, and I guess you@me.com, and I guess our button is blue as well to make that uniform. Okay, yeah. So I think we're having some uniformity in our choice of color here, which is not bad at all. So that's done now. So our login screen is actually properly set up. Everything we need here is right here now. So I hope you're excited as I am, because we're making a whole lot of progress in making this app look as professional as possible, and also to achieve what we desire to achieve. So right here now we're going to create the account screen. So instead of going through this process, we can actually, from the way we have set up our app widget, we can actually reuse this same login screen. But I don't want to do that, because by the time we go into the main app after this security, I want us to do something different, so that when we get to the main screen, the user is going to have a sort of profile. So we want them to enter some extra details that we're going to use to build their profile. So because of that, I will just copy what we have in the login screen and paste it in the create account screen as well. Then we'll change some things so that by the time we start improving, we won't have to go through all this, right? So bear with me in a second. So I'll copy all this. First of all, let me copy the first part, and I'll come to the create account and I'll paste that, because because it actually is actually what we want. So I'll paste that here, right? Then go back to the login screen again, and I'll collapse this, collapse every other thing. Oh, I thought I could collapse everything, but let's just highlight this and copy it. Yeah, so I'll copy this and come down here and paste it. So let's start from the beginning. Now here, this is our create account screen. We have different parameters and a lot of different things. So here is going to be, we're going to change this to already have account, then please log in. Okay, so what we navigate, where do we go to take us back to login screen? Okay, so that's done now. So we'll change this to create user form. I think that's a good name. So don't forget to change that here as well, so that you don't call the wrong thing. Create user form. I need to take all this out. Yeah. So that's done, that's done, that's done. So here on done, we're going to add another element here, which is going to be, we're going to add another parameter, and it's going to be a string, which is, it will be our username, because this is going to have the username, right? So let's add another mutable state here. Copy this and change all of this, and change this to username, right? So that's done. Then every other thing still looks like it should. Then down here we can add the extra username parameter as well, username, so that you can see how you can improve this on your own. You can also continue making this better and better until you are satisfied. Dot value dot trim dot is not empty, then come on, that should be fine, right? Why is he complaining? Oh, this is not comma, it should be ampersand. Like, everything should be valid because we're testing the validity of the input. So after that, here, right here, we can also copy this, duplicate this right here, copy this, push it down and paste it, and change this to username input. Okay, right? So, and we need to import that function, and this is username state. Oh, okay, it's all good. So username state, and this is going to be username as above, right? So that's it really. Everything is fine. Then down here we're still missing out our username dot value dot trim. Okay, so that should be fine. Then up here again, we're still missing our username dot value dot trim again. So it's kind of repetitive, but this is composed for you. You have to write everything out. So, but I prefer this to XML. Yeah. So right, let's run this and check it out and see the changes that we've made. So right here, it still takes us to our login screen. So when we create account, you see the same thing, it has added the username button here, but our button seems to be squashed because, you know, initially when we set the modifier for the size of this username input for the login screen, it's like 250, and need to change that. Let's make that 300 and see if it comes out cleaner. So there's moment of truth. Yeah, nice. Let's go to login. I want to check something. It seems it's still a little tiny weeny bit cut here, so I'll make that 320 and see if it gives me a cleaner UI. well, I like things looking neat. Pardon me for that. But if you do it well, you won't have to do it over again. So that's why. Yeah, it looks cleaner now. So user can enter their username, call him Storm, and when we click next, let's make sure everything is working. Yeah, you at me.com, and next again, some gibberish password. You see, it's active and it still toggles on and off. You see, so it's interesting. We'll have to go through that stress in creating this initial widget, but as you can see, we are using like only 10% of the time we used initially to create the login screen to recreate the create account screen. This is why it's important when you've separated your components like this, you can reuse them and it makes your work a lot more easier. So anywhere in this app that we will need input text, we can just call them up within seconds and we'll get going and focus on other important stuff. So that is a wrap, and I hope you're enjoying it. So now the next thing we're going to do is, I think we are supposed to change something here. Pardon me, sorry for that. So this is supposed to be create account. Right? So missed out that one. So okay, so as you can see, this is create account now. So everything looks perfect. So we are going to connect it to Firebase for which to authenticate the user using their email and password to log in into our app. So that's the next thing that we're going to do in this video. So go and grab a cup of coffee, take a walk, and come back in the next 10 minutes. Let's continue. Okay, so let's now authenticate and link our app to Firebase. So there is a couple of ways you can actually achieve that. I think we're done with the app widget. All we need now is login screen. We don't need this. So right here, let's close this down as well briefly. So we are going to create a view model controller that we're going to be using to pass data from one compose to another, because that is the best way to do it, so that we don't pass data, so that when our compose files, our UI recompose, we won't lose some of our data. So I will create a view model class here in the login package. So that's going to be the view model for both the login and the create account screen. So I will call this let's call this login view model. It doesn't matter, even though we're going to put the create account one inside. So right here, this is a login view model and it's going to inherit the view model class. Yeah, the view model lifecycle class. So down here we're going to start authenticating, but because we've not connected our app to Firebase, we won't be able to find the Firebase Auth here. So we can either go to our build.gradle or go to our browser and look for Firebase authentication dependencies and start. And also we can go to Firebase console. You need to log into your Gmail account here. If we log into Firebase console, yeah, you can see some of the apps that I've already built, and so here you can create a new project enter your project name, continue, follow the prompt and continue. Or you can just, another way to do it is we'll go to Android Studio. So here we'll go to tools. So here you can see Firebase. So if we go on here, we can go to Firebase Authentication. Yeah, that should be okay here. So we can go here, authenticate using Google. So once we click on connect, it takes us to the Firebase console. So you see I've already logged in, so you're supposed to log into console, then create account. It has, you see, it has taken the name of our account already. Then continue. I don't want to enable Gemini in Firebase, not yet. Then enable Google Analytics, no. Then create our project. You see, it's creating our project now, and it's provisioning resources for our project, right? So we'll give that some time to finish up. So it says your project, your Firebase project is ready. So let's continue. So now we'll have our meditation app on Firebase and it's connecting. Okay, so connect. This is a non-secure form. Form will be sent the way that is not secure. You want to send it? Yeah, I want to send it. So it says you can now use Firebase in your project. Go back to Android Studio to start using one of the Firebase SDKs. So let's go back to Android Studio. So you see, connected your app to Firebase. So now let's add some SDK to our app, which is this class path and this plugin here, and also the Firebase Auth dependency. So we'll accept the changes. So if we go back to our build, you will see those dependencies have been added. So this is the Firebase Auth here. So I would like to cut that out and paste it up here because I want to separate this and tag them. So this is going to be our Hilt. So our project is syncing, so syncing and being progress. So right here is going to be Firebase. So now we've created this and it has automatically added all these, and our project is syncing. We'll need to add some other dependencies. So because we're going to use Firestore, like I said initially, when we're going to create the profile, we will need some more details from this user which we'll be using. So we're going to use Firestore as well. So we need a Firestore dependency as well. So now this is connected, as you can see. If here is how you can set up the sign-in and instantiate the instance and initialize the sign-in from, like, with this code here, then you'll be fine. But let's go back and add Cloud Firestore as well. So get started with Cloud Firestore. It's already connected, so let's add the SDK. So I need this dependency for Firestore, so that I'll get all that out of the way. It has put it here again as it used to, and I'll call that again. I want them to be together. Now paste it here. Then so that is all done now. So I will close this, but there is another dependency which is going to be the Firebase bomb. I think it's here. I think it's Firebase bomb. Okay, Android Firebase bomb. So let's go and get that dependency, and it's, see all the dependencies that we've added, this Auth and Firestore. then this as well. I need this Firebase bomb for Firebase platforms. So we'll copy that, go back to our Android Studio, and we'll paste that. So let me close this for now. We'll paste that here. Then we need to put this in parentheses. Come on, right? We need to put this in parentheses because it's Kotlin, and take these off. Take this and add double quotes, double quote. So that's it for now. Then let's sync for the final time. Expecting parentheses where I think I've messed some things up here. Oh yeah, so we need one more here. Okay, everything should be fine. Let's try again. Right, it all looks good, build successful, and now we'll close this down. Then the next thing is now we need to verify and authenticate our user to log them in or to create an account. So right here we're going to call, we have already called the view model, so private val, because we want this to be secure, not so that they can access, nobody can access it and hack our account. So we'll call Firebase Auth. You see, now it's visible because we have added the necessary dependencies and connected. So now Firebase, come on. So it's going to be firebase.auth. So that's it. Import Firebase object. I think the one from KTS. Yeah. Okay, that's fine now. So the next thing is our loading. So we'll make that private. So make it local loading, and we assign that to mutable live data because we're going to be passing some data here. So mutable live data. All right, so mutable live data, set that to false. We need to import this, I guess. Expecting member declaration. Okay, private var. We need to add var, sorry, that's my bad. So let's import mutable live data, then and let's set another variable called loading, and we'll assign that to, that's going to be a live data, and it's going to take a boolean, and that it's going to be assigned to our local loading here. So that's all set up nicely. Then now let's create a function that we use to sign in the user first of all, because this is the login view model. Though we'll do the register next. So here is going to be phone, email, and password signing. So that is going to be the name of our function. It's quite long, but it represents what we're doing here. So now, if email parameter, which is going to be a string, and our password parameter, and our password, which is also going to be a string, then let's pass the main screen, which is simply going to be the screen we want to send this user as a parameter as well. So main screen, set it to empty, return nothing, set it to unit. Okay, so now let's assign all these to our view model scope. .launch. So we're going to launch this on a different thread so that it doesn't interfere with our main thread. So .launch. So down here we're going to use a try catch to find out if the operation was successful, the authentication of the user was successful. So let's say auth sign in with email and password, and we'll pass our email and password parameter here. Then we'll call .add on complete listener. So here we add on complete listener. Let's think I've selected the wrong one. We use a lambda here and we'll set this to task. So down here we're going to use an if statement to set the condition of what's going to happen. So if the task dot is successful, if the task, which is to validate the user, is successful, what do we want to happen? We're going to use another lambda to send them to the main screen, right? So you just send them to the main screen, or else if it's not successful, then for we to catch the error, what happened, maybe due to network issue, they forgot to put their data on, then you should return whatever the error is to us. So here we're going to set this to task. So task.result, whatever result it returns, .toString, so that it gives it in a legible language instead of giving us the error code. So with this, and we'll call this Firebase, right? So this error that is going to be logged in our log cat. Okay, so down here we'll catch the error, so, or exception, the exception I mean to say. So this is going to be X, then pass exception. So inside here we're going to also log the message of the exception that was caught as well. So I'll just copy this, paste it here, then change this to the message of the exception. So here is going to be X ex dot message. So whatever message we got in the exception, then that's what we need it to return. So before we move on to calling this in our login screen, let's quickly set up the function for create account as well, so that once we get there we are all done, then we can continue with other stuff, right? So down here we're going to create another function, and this function is, I will call it create new user. So, and what are the parameters? We're going to have email, which is going to be a string also, and password, which is also going to be a string, then also main screen as a parameter. So we set that up this way. Then also. So we use an if statement. So say for create account to say if loading that we've set up initially dot value is equal to false, right? So that means the user doesn't exist. So what do? We set the loading to true to create a new account. Dot value, we set that to true. So once that is done, then we need to authenticate what the input the user have already submitted and create a new account if they don't have account with us initially. So call create user with email and password function. Then the parameters that we use to create this account is just the email and the password, right? So once they are the email and password are correct, dot add incomplete listener again. So we'll use a lambda here and we'll set task here. So then down here we'll use if statement again. So if task that is successful is true, then what happens? We'll send the user to the main screen because they have just created a new account. Else, if it's not, then we'll set the log of whatever it is that have happened so that the user can know where they are getting things wrong. So with this, we have already set up the create user. Now with this view model, optimize imports. So with this view model, what we need to do is we'll go to our login screen. When we go to our login screen now, what we need to do is to pass the view model as a parameter. Let me close this imports so that we can have some space. So now we'll pass the view model here. So we pass view model to login view model. So and we'll assign that to view model, right? So no model class. So now once we assign that to login view model, we should be fine. So we assign that to view model, sorry, we should be fine. So down here we'll set this login user form, we'll set the loading here, so pass some parameter here, and we'll set this to false so that once the user will have authenticated the user, then we can set it to true. So email, we'll pause this here, which is our parameter for logging the user, email and password. Then down here we're going to call our view model, right? So view model dot email and password sign in, which we created initially, passing our parameters email and password. I think I've misspelled password somewhere, I just saw it now. So I think I've misspelled password somewhere. Then let's pass a lambda here. Why? Oh, this is where I misspelled it up, just right under my nose. Right. So now that we validated, authenticated this user with the email and password, so let's just take them, and everything looks right, then we'll take them to our meditation screens dot main screen. Yeah, so that's where the name. So with that, now our user can log in, but because we have not created any account, the user obviously cannot log in. So we'll go to the create account. Let's close this import, and also just do exactly like we've done here and call the view model login view model again, and assign that to view model class, right? So no, not this one again. Or do I keep taking the wrong one? Right, so I guess that's it. Yes. So now we come down to and set our create user form again, set our loading to false. Then once we set our loading to false, then we'll still pass the same parameters using lambda like we've done before, email, then password, which is going to be what we require for the user to create account. So under that, we'll call our view model dot create new user. Yeah, that's the function. So here, then we'll pass the email and password parameter as well. So once we do that, we'll use lambda to now navigate and send nav controller dot navigate meditation screen screens dot main screen dot name. There's an error somewhere here, type mismatch. So we set up the type, the email and password to take 3 parameters, and this is why it's complaining. Undone. Okay, change parameter type undone or function to 2. So let's check our parameter type undone. Okay, so right here I'm supposed to add the username. Yeah, so that's fine because the undone we added in the user form, create user form here is 3 parameters, so that's why it was complaining. So now the moment of truth. Let's see if our user is able to log in successfully now into our app using Firebase. Okay, I hope you're excited about the progress we're making. This is amazing, guys. With this, you can at least start your basic app, set it up in the right way as a professional, because if you're learning Jetpack Compose and Android development using Kotlin and Jetpack Compose, with this in your toolbox, you can set up an app professionally and start developing. So focusing on other deeper and more important things. But this is actually a win, and I'm happy for you guys. So it's loading, validating all our dependencies. Let's see, our app is launching now, so let's see. Okay, right, so now our app has launched. Let's try logging in and see what will happen. So you@me.com, and this person is a tester. Did I get that correct? Yeah, tester. Okay, so let's log in. See, our app crashes. Let's go and look at logcat and see what error. Okay, so down, let's take this up a bit. Okay, so you see Firebase exception, an internal error has occurred, configuration not found. That's the error. So because no user have been registered on this app, right? So let's rerun our app now and create a user create an account and see if we can log in successfully. Okay, so now we'll go to create account, enter this, even though we're not using it at the moment. So let's call this person tester, and this email is you@me.com, and password is tester. Yeah, so let's create an account. So our app keeps crashing. So what is the problem now? Initial task failed for action, recapture action, sign up, and internal error have occurred. So it has to do with Firebase. So let's go to Firebase and see if we have created a new user yet. We have not actually set up authentication for Firebase yet. So yeah, we need to create this. That is why we can create you can add a new user to our app. So we need to authenticate and manage users. So we need to get started here, set this up before we can create users. So we'll select email and password, we enable that, then we save that, and once we save that, now you see it's now enabled, so there is no user yet. So let's go back to our app and see if we can create another user now that we've corrected that bit. So let's rerun our app once more and check this out. I think this guy has gone too big, made it fat. All right, so let's create this user, Mr. Tester, and you@me.com. Then the password is tester. Let me make sure I got it right. Okay, so let's create an account. See, we've created a new user, right? So it took us to the main screen, so the app did not crash again because we have a kind of bucket where we collect our users details. So let's go to Firebase and see that this new user have been registered. Let's reload this. You see the new user have just been created with a unique ID, the user UID, which we can use to call up a particular user and also authenticate them when they want to log in again. So once we reload our app, it's going to take us back to the login screen because we've not created persistence. We have not created set condition for them to remain logged in once they log out, they reload the app. So now if we reload, we're still going to go back to login, and so let's use that to test out if we can actually log into our app as well. All right, moment of truth. So you@me.com, then password is tester. Let's make sure it's the correct one. Login, see, to the main screen. So we did it. I know you guys are very happy and excited about this and the progress we're making on this app, and it has been an honor guiding you through this, and I hope that this will help you in your coding journey and also help you become a better programmer in a professional way to get your dream job. So in the next video, we're going to make our main screen, which is this main screen. We're going to add a top app bar here, and we're also going to add some content in the content section in the middle here, then also set up some bottom navigations. So because we're still dealing with navigation, this video is going to be like a 3-part series. So we have done the first part, this is the second part, then the third part will be the final part for the navigation. So once we set up to see how we can navigate using bottom navigation and also top app bar menu, the drop down and all that, then we'll know that you can build any kind of app with this knowledge, because these are the basic settings of your app. So with that, you can navigate to any screen and we'll now move further to maybe learning how to call up data and also work with complex data, and also fix up start feeding consuming data from an API or an external link. Then that is when we now come back to navigation again, trying to demonstrate deep links if we are going to have like notifications, and also connect our app. Like if you are building a financial app for the finance industry, make it be a bank app for instance, from your app, if you want to collect payment, to link to the bank app. So those ones, we're going to use deep link to do that. So I hope you stay put. And I noticed that half of you who watch this video have not even subscribed, and I urge you please to subscribe to support what we're doing here, and also help us to create more videos like this for you and help you in your coding journey. And until then, I will see you on the next video. Cheers.